Guys, I got an article I want to read right here. Will Destiny 2 keep doing annual expansions after the final shape? From Mr. Paul Tassi right here. Bungie has been very, very specific in terms of what they have announced about the future of Destiny 2 right now. Obviously, that's the final shape announced years ago, but now coming into focus ahead of a June release after a 3-month delay. But then there's also the unveiling of episodes, a replacement for the Destiny 2 seasonal model. That's 1 less season, but 3 longer episodes, instead of which will contain more content in each of them, telling narrative disconnected stories after the final shape that can be played in any order. After that, however, we know nothing, which has led fans to wonder if Bungie is simply done making annual expansions for Destiny at all, and whether the new path forward is just doing episodes endlessly. It's not unheard of. In fact, it's probably close to the norm. Very few games in this genre have sizable yearly expansions. The Division 2 had its big New York expansion, but largely stuck with just rotating seasons. Diablo 3 had 1 expansion before looping through about 30 different seasons. Avengers did 1, but died before it managed to get out a second. This simply isn't something you see often, but Destiny has done it for close to a decade, more or less. So are they done? Yeah, these are the episodes right here. Before we go any further, I want to ask you guys, do you feel like we're going to get annual expansions? Okay, let me ask y'all this. Do you feel like episodes are going to give us more or less content in a year? Because it's being packaged up and sold as if it's going to give us more content. Like right here, you got new quests, new story, new activities, new weapons, artifact mods, past ranks, past rewards, new armor. And then you have Act 1, 6 weeks, Act 2, 6 weeks, Act 3, 6 weeks, which is essentially the same exact things. Okay, so if it's 3 episodes, hold on. Remember, you got the annual expansion that will launch. A few weeks later, after we essentially beat the raid, the first episode will launch. A dungeon won't launch then, right? Then you have 2 episodes that follow. Guys, I don't think we're going to get another raid. I don't think we're going to get a raid. You see where I'm coming with this? What we could be looking at next year is we get the raid, the final shape raid, no dungeon that episode. And so then Revenant and Heresy will probably have the 2 dungeons. Now, Bungie kills expansions. I think you can make the argument that the current scale of Destiny has proven to be unsustainable and will then become even more so after recent layoffs of 10% of the company and further shifts into new IPs like Marathon and other incubation projects. Well, here's the thing. This thing right here says that the current scale of Destiny has proven to be unsustainable. I don't necessarily think it is. I just think that obviously if you've got the company split amongst all these different projects, yeah, you can't take half your workforce and say, hey, keep putting out the same amount of content that you've done now for the past, nearly decade. I do think that there is going to be a focus on Marathon and the other projects to get them out the door. And then Bungie's just going to have to, they're just going to see, man. They're going to see if those games pop. And if they pop, that's it. If Marathon comes out and it's amazing and it's also less stress on Bungie, less overhead, but it makes more than Destiny, dude, that's the no-brainer, Even if it makes the same as Destiny, but less overhead and less headache, then they're gonna hang with Marathon. But if Marathon comes out and it bombs, and these other games come out and they bomb, not good, dude. Now, expansions are hugely costly on all fronts and take tremendous time, money, and resources to make, and have so much riding on them, when individual episodes may not. And they are not even guarantees of game health either, as Lightfall did huge numbers, but because of its reception, the game tanked for the rest of the year. God, there's so many things that came with Lightfall in the year of Lightfall that were great things, man. Just the narrative was bad. I don't think who in here has watched a filler episode in their favorite anime and was like, I love this. Actually, there were a few fillers. There have been a few fillers in the past, but the problem is the thing that's always weighing on the back of our minds when we experience filler content, whether it's in games or shows, is that where the meat and potatoes are. Even though you may enjoy the greens on the side, you're ready. You want the meat and potatoes. You're like, come on, I want the good shit. And you can dabble, but I can't stand whenever you reach that that cliffhanger moment in one of your favorite animes, and then it's like, okay, now we're about to give you a season full of fillers. And the idea is that it may be time for Bungie to try a different kind of storytelling. They're already starting to do that with disconnected episodes, and it's possible the entire model of 4 seasons a year leading into the next year's expansion may simply be done. Bungie doesn't kill expansions. This is the case for keeping things as they are, albeit with episodes now subbing in for seasons apparently. I would say that we are probably done doing yearly expansions, as the last 3 times now they've been 15 months, and I could see that increasing to a year and a half the way things are going. I could see that too, guys. Bungie has not been able to maintain that 12-month cycle in a very long time. I mean, it started with Shadowkeep, and then Beyond Light it kept going. Witch Queen, actually, Witch Queen to Lightfall, they did almost. I mean, it was like 1 week pass, but they got very close to keeping that 12-month cycle, which I was extremely impressed with. I could see it going, you know, it depends on the success of the other games and how much Bungie is wanting to jump back on Destiny being their only cash cow. We'll see. But the structure of expansions is way too baked into Destiny at this point, and even they are indeed costly, I think Bungie needs them in order for overall revenue to not fall off a cliff, which would lead to more layoffs and are hard to emerge from spiral. Keep in mind that Bungie isn't just selling an expansion, they are usually selling $100 bundles of all the content for that coming year. And with inflation and revenue issues, who knows, maybe they'll jump to $120 instead. That upfront payment being replaced with episodes that players may or may not feel like buying every 3 months would be a colossal risk. Even if things are tough now, breaking down the expansion model entirely feels like something that has the potential to end the game rather than help it. My guess as to why Bungie has not announced a new expansion, like they announced 3 expansions ahead of the time previously, is that they simply want everyone to be solely focused on the final shape, something they're hoping works as a redemption for this year, and one they desperately need to sell extremely well. I think they announced episodes to confirm once and for all that no, Destiny 2 is not ending after the final shape. But talking about the next saga before this one is concluded is probably not a conversation they want to start, even if it's just the name. My take is that we will probably continue to see expansions, annual expansions. That part's probably going to keep being stretched the way it has been, and we should probably brace for that. But without expansions, I simply don't think this thing continues to work at all. I would say from an analytics standpoint, I mean, I don't know. You guys tell me. I mean, what do y'all come back for? I know so many people do that they come back for the annual expansions. I mean, that's what they really come back for. They'll jump in every now, like they may skip a season. They'll jump in here and there. But the annual expansions, dude, there's a huge influx of players. Live service isn't sustainable. Has to end at some point. I don't know, man. Dude, look at World of Warcraft. Look at RuneScape. Look at Final Fantasy 14. They've got full-blown subscription models. People pay $15 a month year-round plus biannual expansions. For Destiny, though, here's the thing. It could work for Destiny. You got to keep adding. You got to keep scaling it. You got to keep scaling it. You give me a house, you know, you let me buy real estate within the last city. You start adding like clan halls and stuff like that. I mean, these are things that are definitely going to make the game feel more like an MMO. I think the main thing to take away from, you know, what Paul's thinking and what we think too, guys, is that, you know, annual expansions I think are going to probably be put on hold. I think that 2025 is going to roll around and we're going to be looking at more episodes probably. Bungie's probably going to lay out the episodes they have laid out. They're probably going to keep a workforce continuing to make these episodes, and then there's going to be a big shift to get Marathon out the door. And I think 2025 is going to be the year of Marathon. If we do get an annual expansion, this is just what I think. If we do get an annual expansion again inside of Destiny, 2026 is what I think. Now, all of this can go to shit if Sony ends up taking over Bungie, and then you know, whatever that ratio is, whatever that revenue threshold they're supposed to stay at, if they end up falling below that and Sony does a takeover of Bungie, then who knows? Who freaking knows? Sony could go in there and axe Marathon. They could go in there and axe Destiny. Be like, hey, yeah, everybody here, you're going to work on The Last of Us now. But hold on. We're getting carried away. At the end of the day, no matter what we say here, I do think that Destiny has gotten much, much better over the years and has continued to grow. And I think that we kind of give it a hard time. I want us to read this right here. And this kind of gives you a perspective of things. This is from Eric Connor. I think this is so good. This just kind of gives you some perspective of how Destiny has changed. I can't believe there was a time when Destiny didn't have Fireteam Finder. Wow. Remember when Destiny didn't have Vault from Orbit either? Wow. Remember when you couldn't favorite shaders and emotes? Wow. Remember when you couldn't see the whole squad after an activity and give them high fives and shit? Wild. Remember when you couldn't make numbers go up and party by a pretty tree in the tower? Wild. Remember when you couldn't save loadouts at Destiny? Wild. Remember when you couldn't do mod stuff super quickly? Wild. Dude, this is actually such a huge update. Remember when Destiny didn't even have Strand? Wow, this is actually a good clip though. Look at this. I love Strand. You know, if there's one thing we'd say, think about how crazy busted Stasis was, and think about how Strand was brought to us. I mean, Bungie did a really good job bringing us Strand. There has not been one moment in PvP where Strand has been nearly anywhere close to how powerful Stasis was. Remember when Destiny didn't have fishing? Wild. Okay, I know not everybody here is like crazy about fishing, but you know, I mean, look, we're talking about MMO things. This is MMO-esque, right? You got fishing. Remember when Destiny didn't have Lucent Hive? Wild. Remember when Destiny didn't have glaives? Yeah, used to think about the glaive thing. Don't get me wrong, glaives are cool, but after you killed off Winterbind and the glaive fantasy earlier this year, I care less. Remember when Destiny didn't have crossplay and save? Wild. God, that was annoying though, right? But that was such a big deal when they added crossplay and just it's simply cross save. I was playing on a BNet account, and then we had crossplay save go live. I was finally able to transfer my old PlayStation account to PC, which was great. I know. Remember when Destiny didn't have dungeon keys? Wild. Remember when Destiny didn't have craftable weapons? Wild. You know what? I love craftable weapons, guys. Some of you say that weapon crafting ruined Destiny, but I love crafting in Destiny. Remember when Destiny didn't have unlimited primary ammo? Wild. Dude, y'all remember that? Remember when subclasses still look like this? Wild. Ah, man. What a time, dude. What a time. It was so simple. I would say build crafting has gotten a lot better with 3.0, but there's been some drawbacks. There were some things that got hurt, some things that got hit in the crossfire for sure. Remember when you couldn't Eager's Edge your teammates off of cliffs? Wild. Remember when the helm wasn't a thing? Wild. Anybody else getting bored of the helm? I mean, the helm was cool for a little bit, but I'm just getting kind of bored of it. Remember when Destiny didn't have stasis? Wild. Remember when Destiny didn't have finishers? Wild. Yeah, y'all remember that when they added finishers? At first, I like rejected it. I was like, no, I'm not about this. And well, I actually like it. Remember when Destiny didn't have transmog? Wild. Oh boy. These last two were really iffy for me, simply because, don't get me wrong, finishers are cool, but a lot of its existence is there for, you know, come out with a cool finisher, another means of monetization. Transmog, yes, you could do it all in game, but also another means of monetization. It's optional, but you know, it's there. Remember when Saint 14 wasn't even a thing? Wild. That season was dope. You know, I didn't know what to expect, but he's such a lovable character. Remember when Scorn didn't exist? Wild. I thought at one time Taken were the most annoying enemies, but for me, guys, I think Scorn are the most annoying enemy type. Remember when Gambit and the Drifter weren't a thing? Wild. Truly, I feel like Drifter's been here since D1. Yeah, you remember when we didn't have Gambits? Bungie took a risk with it. I'm telling you, the first like 6 months Gambit came out, I was playing it almost every day, dude. And I even bring this up a bunch. I had a friend, he picked up Destiny because of Gambit. And I remember like hitting him up. I was like, hey man, you want to do a raid or something? Or I was like, have you done any raids? Have you done? And he was like, dude, it's like, I've been hitting Gambit. I love it. So it had a following. And I actually think it still has a following. Remember when Destiny dungeons weren't a thing? Wild. Dude, that is wild. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. At one time, we didn't have dungeons in Destiny. Remember when the Dreaming City wasn't a thing? Wild. Remember when machine guns weren't a thing in Destiny 2? Remember when bows weren't a thing in Destiny 2? Destiny? Wild. Oh, yeah. I'm so happy bows are a thing. Remember when these supers weren't in Destiny 2? Wild. What a time, man. Forsaken was such a crazy time. Remember when weapons in Destiny couldn't be masterworked? Wild. Dude, even more so than that. Look at this. Not only could they not be masterworked, remember when weapons in Destiny had static rolls? Look at this. At one time, people grinded for this. A mag perk, 1 trait, and no masterwork. This is what almost killed the game, though. Actually, I think this is what did kill the game. It did kill the game. There was just nothing intriguing. It was like a weapon could come out and had the best stats in the world, but if it just had, you know, a poopy trait, the one poopy trait it had, then that was it. You couldn't do anything about it. Remember when trace rifles didn't exist in Destiny? Wild. Cold Hard was the first. Cold Hard was the first. Remember when linear fusion rifles didn't exist in Destiny? Wild. Yeah, there's a lot of things, man, that Bungie has added. There's a lot of things they've given us or taken away from us, right? I can actually, we could go through a whole list of things probably. Remember when the Whisper mission was a thing? Wild. Remember when the Outbreak mission was a thing? Wild. Remember when you had a customizable hub for you called the Tribute Hall? Wild. Wild indeed.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.